Hello everyone, my name is Neftaly Lara. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm an assistant director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions here at Northwestern. Today, I am accompanied by 3 current students as we move forward with our Purple Prism series. So I'm going to give them some time to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Alvaro. I go by he, him pronouns. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and right now I'm in Evanston. I'm a 4th year in the College of Arts and Sciences, Weinberg, and I'm studying Latino Studies.
Hi, I'm Vivica. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm studying sociology and global health studies on the pre-public health track.
Hi everyone, my name is Rafael. I am a 4th year at Weinberg studying computer science and psychology, and I am from Caguas, Puerto Rico.
Thank you, everyone. So to kind of give an introduction to the discussion, it is a part of a Purple Prism series, an identity-based series centering the voices, resources, and communities at Northwestern, specifically when it comes from underrepresented backgrounds. So we started off with Mauricio Gonzalez, class of 2018, and also an assistant director in the office, giving a day in his life and talking more about his experiences as a Latinx student at Northwestern. It was followed by Rafael also doing a takeover and showing us a day in his life. And it was lastly finished off with me and Alvaro going around Chicagoland, showcasing landmarks and historical locations that are important to the Latinx community, not just in Evanston, not just at Northwestern, but also in the different neighborhoods around Chicago. So here we are at a roundtable or Zoom table with these 3 students, and we're going to talk a little bit more about more in depth regarding what it means to be a Latinx student at Northwestern and the experiences that come with it. I know that being from an underrepresented background doesn't always mean that you're going to have the best experiences, and for that reason, I am extremely grateful for our student panelists for being comfortable with being vulnerable and to also remind them that this is something that is very near and dear to them. It's something that really speaks about what their Northwestern experience has been like. So definitely going to be really reflective on that as we move forward with the presentation and with the discussion. So to begin, I want to know that a lot of our assistant directors kind of ask our students why they chose Northwestern. But we know that that question really encapsulates like their junior, senior years in high school, but that so much came before that moment. So if you all could just talk a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, I can go first. So again, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. This community called Maryville. In middle school, the demographics were mostly Mexican. I'm Mexican. And then I made this transition to high school, where it was a private Catholic all-boy high school. And at that high school, Brophy, it was mostly white. So yeah, there was like so much stuff that was going on before, right? And then also jumping into the college application process in junior year. I remember, I think I leaned mostly on my teachers, my middle school teachers and my high school teachers, because I knew that, well, that's the thing. I knew that I didn't know a lot about colleges and universities. So I really leaned a lot on the experiences and advice from my middle school teachers, a few of them. I'm in a couple high school teachers. I remember being so nervous about Northwestern, not even being able to know if I was like even going to be able to make it, right? There is this thing called imposter syndrome. And I know I was feeling that because I was really doubting like my achievements up till that point and my skills. I got a 26 on the ACT. And then there was this program called Naviance. Maybe some of you are familiar with it, where like it charts you as a point on this graph where like the y-axis, the higher it is, like the higher your GPA. And then on the x-axis, the more far out you are, the higher standardized test score you got. And then I was looking at the statistics for Northwestern. And then all the ones I got in were like over here. And they were all green. And so like they had very high standardized test score and very high GPA. And then there are some like more that were lowballed. And it's just like red. And then over here in the middle, it was like a bigger pool. Like over here were like outliers, but in that pool, in the middle, it was bloody red, and I was smack in the middle of it. So I know I was dealing with a lot of this self-doubt in my own skills, but again, I was really able to lean on my teachers, and both in middle school and high school, because like as a first gen low income student, I just didn't really know what the place, what the university was going to be for me, what the perfect university was going to be for me.
Yeah, for me, so like I said, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I identify as Afro-Latina. I'm half Black and half Mexican, and that has really dictated like how I view the world and like what I've gotten into and stuff. And my high school was predominantly Latinx, so it was like 98% Latinx and a lot of low income students. It was like on the heart of the south side of Milwaukee. You know, there's like a Mexican market like a block away from school. And that's like the life that I knew. And so when I first like toured Northwestern, I knew it was going to be really different. You know, like I didn't have like a Mexican market in my backyard anymore. I didn't really see palateros outside of school. I was like, this is going to be a big shift in what I'm used to. But I was really looking for how were students like me like accepted around campus, and what did this look like, what spaces were there, to make sure that even though the Latinx community might be smaller than other groups, that it was still like vibrant and still present on campus. That was really important to me.
Yeah, so for me, personally, when I'm from Puerto Rico, so that's basically that basically means that I'm surrounded by people with like similar backgrounds to mine. So the kind of the norm for me, or the majority of people there, are Latinx or Hispanic, right? And so when coming to Northwestern, similar to what Vivica said, it was like a kind of a shift in how the community felt, right? I was always used to like a close-knit community there, speaking Spanish all the time. But when I came to Northwestern, I realized like that wasn't necessarily the case at first glance. So I definitely had some difficulty navigating Northwestern during my first year here, but the resources that the university provides, or provided me at least, during that first year, were very important in like helping me find my own community, just like feeling comfortable with like my identity here at Northwestern.
Thank you all. Those are great. I want to know, considering your backgrounds and considering that many of you have spoken about culture shock or imposter syndrome, why did you choose Northwestern, and why do you continue to choose it today?
I could start us off first again. So as I mentioned, a lot of what I relied on was on my teachers, right? Because ultimately it was going to be my decision whether I wanted to commit to Northwestern or not. And I just want to share a couple stories from my high school teachers. When I was talking to them about being worried about like even being able to make it at Northwestern. So one of them was my philosophy teacher, Mr. Marr. He leads the chess team at Brophy. And he was able to make me feel better with this story, and it's like about Marvel. So he explained how like in Marvel there's like the Hulk, and he can like lift up entire buildings and mountains and stuff. There's the Flash, and you know he's just super fast as light. And there's Hawkeye, and he's so smart and he's very precise. And then there's Ant-Man, and Ant-Man, right, isn't the biggest. He can't lift mountains. He probably can't circle the globe in like seconds. But there are only some particular jobs that only the Ant-Man can do. So I took that, and I was like, you know, I have my own right abilities that I was doubting, but I have my own things that I myself can claim and can do. So that was a very cool story. And then another one was from my physics teacher, Mr. Widbin. And again, because like I'm a first gen student, what really was what caught my ears would be what I hear in like the media and popular media. And oftentimes I would come from like the US top 50 colleges and universities, right? So among them, right, are like Harvard and Stanford and Yale. And my physics teacher went to Harvard. So I went to him for advice. I was like, you know, I don't even know if I'm going to make it, right? And then what he shared, right, is that you can make it. Like you're at a very good school. Brophy is a very good school. And it's going to be like on you whether you want to make that choice or not. And then he said something like, the more work that you put in at the beginning, right, the easier it'll be like down the line. And at that point, I didn't completely know what he meant, but being at Northwestern a bit, right? It's just there's so much stuff we have to juggle on top of academics and clubs, right? Internships and jobs, worrying about like climate change. So yeah, ultimately it was my teachers that were able to give me that advice and counsel for me to believe in myself, right, and my abilities, that I was going to be successful and I wasn't alone. Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing for me, like I said, I just went to like a small public high school on the south side. So I was aware that it was kind of like a bubble and that there was a whole lot out there that I hadn't yet experienced, and like that there was a lot of people that I needed to meet and a lot of like professionalism I needed to work on, and academics, like there were a lot of strong programs out there that I could choose from. And I just felt like with Northwestern, when I heard about all the great things, there were just so many opportunities. There were so many doors open, whether it was like clubs and organizations or internships you could get into, or even just like who your professors were. And that was something I wasn't really used to. And I knew that like going to Northwestern, like those doors would open up for me in a way that I didn't have access to in high school. Don't get me wrong, my high school was great and they did what they could, but Northwestern just has like such a far reach that I knew I needed to go and start learning, and always keep that part of like Southside Milwaukee in me, but also be aware of all the places and opportunities that I could go to once I go to Northwestern and start there.
So for me, I initially chose Northwestern because I wanted to major in chemistry, and then Northwestern had a great chemistry program, right? But then, once like navigated college classes a bit more, I realized like medicine like wasn't the best route for me, and so I wanted to switch it up with my major. So that kind of like switches like my reason why I chose Northwestern. But I think one of the reasons why I continue to choose Northwestern is that it has a huge investment in its students. So in like pre-professional areas or extracurriculars, on-campus jobs, you name it, right? Whatever resource you need and you would like think you need, Northwestern probably has. So like getting that support and everything I want to do as a student and like as a CS and psychology major, it's very important to me and like my aspirations and my goals and whatever I want to do in the future. So that's one of the many reasons why I still continue to choose Northwestern.
Awesome. And I know you've been away from home for some time now. You're pros at doing your laundry. You don't shrink things. You don't bleach things that you shouldn't be bleaching. You know your way around campus, so you don't have to ask for directions anymore. But I know that this hasn't always been the same. And I want to preface my question, but I also saying that I understand that there's so many different intersections of identities that you guys have, and that there are so many different meanings that hold with the different identities that you have as well. So how have you overcome different obstacles that you faced at Northwestern, like culture shock, like imposter syndrome? And has your relationship with your Latinx identity stayed the same, changed, evolved in different ways?
I can go first on this one. I guess for me, the big thing with like being away from home, like I said, it was a very different world and I was worried about that. But I did a program called Bio and Chem Excel, which basically it's for students that are like from any marginalized identity. So LGBTQ, people like students of color, first gen low income. And you basically apply to it once you're accepted to Northwestern, and then you spend 8 weeks on campus the summer before your first year, and you take like a chemistry course, a calculus course, and like kind of similar to like a first year seminar. And the program director, Dr. Luke Flores, he's also like Latino, and he was a big help for me like in my transition from high school to college. We had similar backgrounds, which made me feel comfortable that someone like him could succeed at Northwestern, and it showed me like that I could succeed there as well. And just learning like the difference in like academic rigor, that was a big change for me. So I started doing things like not just through this program, but also like peer guided study groups and office hours and other things like that, so that like I could kind of help with that big transition there. I would say my relationship with like my Latinx identity has changed a lot. When I was in high school, even though we were predominantly Latinx, it was a lot of like just Mexican or Puerto Rican like people, like that was it. And coming to Northwestern, I've like got to meet like a lot of other students, and like how they interact with their Latinx identity has influenced how I interact with mine. So like I had never met a Honduran person in my life before coming to college, and now like both my roommates are. And so I think it's really cool that like I've been able to interact differently. Even though I was in a predominantly Latinx group, I still didn't have complete exposure to like so much more Latinx diversity the way I do at Northwestern now.
Yeah. So for me to kind of like address the first question, I think, you know, obstacles in like during the first year are very common at like any college you decide to go to. But at Northwestern, it's such a huge emphasis on advising. So you get an advisor for almost everything. So I think that's really important, at least in the academic side of things. If you're having trouble, like I had trouble like managing classes, kind of like which classes should I take in order to like graduate on time. My advisor did a great job at like helping me frame how my classes should look like in order to like successfully like pursue what I want to do and graduate on time, right? So that was really huge on Northwestern's part. Also, professors are a great support system. I know like I visited my first CS class professor a lot, and she helped me with like problems from the class. Like once the class finished, she also like helped me prepare for internship interviews. So I guess like there are the resources on campus. You just have to like basically know or like at least get to know what do you have in like kind of your toolbox, and then like decide how you want to approach that. And regarding the second question, I feel like my Latinx identity has changed a bit. It hasn't changed like dramatically, at least with myself, right? But I can say like my knowledge of Latinx or Hispanic culture has definitely changed, or at least improved, in the sense that I've met a lot of people from different backgrounds that I never met before, and like kind of learning those like their perspectives, because I lived in an island with like the Latinx population was the majority, right? So like learning how people like see the world from like a minority standpoint in the US was very interesting. So I think those are some ways that it has changed. As far as with myself, I feel like it hasn't changed that much like within me, but like with other people, it definitely has improved a lot.
Thanks for sharing, Rafa. I know for me, a bit more background is that in high school, I was in this student org called Hermanos Unidos, Brothers United. So coming to college, I knew that I wanted to be able to find a space like that too. And it took time, right? It didn't happen immediately. I remember at the student org, I signed up for like 18 organizations. Yes, 18. And it's like completely normal. Everyone does it. And it's only like through your time at Northwestern, right, that you find what you really want. So I feel it's but also, right, we're all so different, and we all bring our different identities. So I feel it's not exactly like choosing a side, because like for me, I'm gonna be like Catholic and Latino like all the time. But it's more like this like more complex and nuanced process of negotiating those identities. So with that, right, freshman year, I remember I was exploring the Catholic Student Association, and I would really hang out at the Catholic Center, the Shield Catholic Center, and it would be really chill there because there'd be study areas, study rooms, people to socialize with, and snacks. But then, right, also thinking about my Latinx identity, eventually I feel I was drawn out more to the multicultural center because that's where I felt where I belonged more, right? That was going to be my home away from home. And that happened because of lots of reasons, right? Because of being able to see people, meet people who look more like me, seeing administrators that look like me, such as those in multicultural student affairs and student enrichment services. There were professors that I met in the Latinx studies program that looked like me, and we could relate about like a lot of things too. So being able to find, right, and come to terms that my Latinx community here at Northwestern isn't just going to be my undergraduate peers, but also my professors and graduate students and other administrators. So with that, right, my Latinx identity has really been complicated. And it's been informed, right, a lot by the Latinx Studies program and the classes that I was able to take there, right, and coming to terms with like what it means to be a Hispanic or Latino or Latinx person.
Thank you, everyone. So you all have kind of touched on this a little bit, but I just want to know, how have you engaged with the Latinx community on campus in whatever shape, way, or form that you want to define it?
Yeah. So in my case, I joined Aransa, which is like Northwestern's Latinx organization. And so that basically like introduced me to the Latinx/Hispanic culture here at the university. So it's really interesting just because like you kind of meet people from like different countries, different backgrounds. So I was like, it was a great way to like meet fellow classmates and even like some potential friends, right? But besides that, I also kind of like ran into some people like from some Latinx people, and they that actually like spoke their first language is Spanish. So that's a pretty cool way to kind of like navigate at least like part of the first year together, or like share what our experiences have been like here at Northwestern. Besides that, I think I work at the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, so kind of like working in I work like with Latinx recruitment. So doing that kind of like forces you to look at Northwestern with like a different perspective, I guess, because you look at how can we make like Northwestern better for these like incoming or potential incoming students with a Latinx background. So I think like that job has helped me look at Northwestern differently, and can like just target some different ways that it could be better for like future generations of Latinx communities and students.
I think for me, I've interacted with the Latinx community like a lot informally, like even though it's not through like structured like clubs and organizations. For me, it's a lot of just like finding other Latinx people like in my classes and stuff. And like I mentioned through Bio and Chem Excel, that's where like I met a lot of my friend group who are like predominantly Latinx, and it makes me feel comfortable. I know that like in high school, like hearing Spanish on the regular was like what I was used to, and like that's just what I grew up in. And then coming to Northwestern, I was afraid like I'd lose that. And with my friend group, like I like that, like Rafael mentioned, like a lot of them still speak Spanish, and I like that we can kind of keep that, and it's like our thing, like our group thing. So I like that dynamic, and like I said, even though it's informal, it's still like valuable to me. And I think a lot of the offices on campus, I've been able to take advantage of, like student enrichment services. They've been a huge help in like a variety of ways, especially with COVID and like my family situation. Like my dad's like a small business owner, so COVID obviously hits hard financially for us. And it's really nice that like I didn't have to worry that much because I knew student enrichment services like had my back. Like all I had to do was ask. And they would find a way to help me out even when they're going through a tough time as a Northwestern office. So I think like interacting with the offices have been like another way that I've really done that. And I've been really impressed with how helpful they are.
Thank you both for sharing. So I also want to add just a bit more. I know I was able to touch on like this discussion of like what the Latinx community at Northwestern is here at Northwestern. But to share a bit more, I remember coming here my first year and joining Alianza. I was able to see sort of the difficulties of running a student org, because we're only here typically for about 4 years and then we're out. So it's hard to be able to carry on and pass on like this structure and knowledges that we've learned as a student organization. And I remember my first year, I think, and it still is today like this. It's a sort of fragmented community, right? In terms of numbers of undergraduate Latinos, right? We're not a majority and we're a small community. So then we're fragmented because then we are in a lot of student organizations, right? And not all those student organizations are going to be centered around Hispanic, Latina, Latino, Latinx identities. So again, yeah, there's lots of organizations, right? Besides Alianza, there's a Northwestern Baile Folklorico. And they're one of my favorite clubs on campus. Every spring they throw on their Ritmo de mis Ancestros performance. And this is the very important thing to note, that at that event in the spring, they're always going to know that their presence on campus and the reason they're out there on that night, right, is a sign of resistance, that we're here on campus and we're fighting for our representation because things weren't always like this. So there is a lot of work to be able to do, right, in terms of being able to fight for representation and diversity. And Baile Folklorico as an organization, right, reflects that. And also to talk a bit about like, not just students, but even like professors and administrators. I'm in a lucky position where I've benefited from the fruits of the labor and the struggle that my former peers and other people at Northwestern have been able to fight for here at Northwestern, because like the Latinx studies program, for example, it hasn't always been here. So Northwestern might be able to like champion that Latinx studies program because we're a growing program. But my peers had to like fight for this in the past. They fought to bring these ethnic studies classes to Northwestern, like the Latinx studies program. They fought to bring and agitated and resisted and dissented to be able to bring professors of color to campus. So I just want to note that, right? Because the Latinx community here might be fragmented, and it's diverse, and I hope it's going to continue to grow, but it's only going to be out of that this legacy of protest that will be able to continue flourishing here at Northwestern.
Thank you for that. It really shows the diversity of the Latinx community as a whole, but also in terms of how it is on campus. So I really appreciate all of your insight. And I know that Northwestern has many courses that look at the Latinx experiences, voices, and communities, nationally, locally, globally. And if you've been able to take a course, what have you learned from it? And if you haven't, what experiences at Northwestern have allowed you to learn more about what it means to be Latinx, or to learn more about the diversity of the community?
I can go first again. So I know one of my favorite courses that I've taken, I forgot the class number, but it was about environmental racism. And it's a very cool class to take because if you want to learn about the unique contribution that Latinx resistance brings to environmental racism, this is the class where you can find that answer to. So the class was really interesting because we covered different environmental justice organizations, not just in the Chicagoland area, but abroad. And by abroad, my bad, I mean around the United States. And the unique strategies that they employ to be able to mobilize and organize. So I really like that class, right? Because it shows that it's not just in Chicago that we're at, right? We're all over the United States, from California to Maine. So I really like that class, right? Because it was able to inform me, not just locally, but on a national scale of the work that strong Latinx leaders bring to the fight against environmental racism.
I would say, I mean, I'm earlier than these two at Northwestern, so I'm only my second year, so I haven't really had a chance to take like a Latinx centered class yet. Like I really want to, but being a global health studies major, I was really concerned with how would like my Black and brown identities be present or taught about in the classroom. And I've been really impressed. I think I took Global Health 301 last year with Professor Sarah Rodriguez, and she did a great job of touching on like I would say like Mexicans in America, but also like Mexico as a country and their healthcare system. So I like how it's incorporated, even if it's not the class focus, it is integrated into like the curriculum to teach like diversity and not be solely focused on like majority groups. And so I really like that that's at least offered. And even in like my health communication class right now, they talk about like the language barrier and what impact that has on patient provider communication. And I think it's good that like it's not the focus, but at least it was looped in, and the way they talk about it is done very well in my opinion. And I think it's really cool that I have a lot of my own experiences, and I've been able to write about them and talk about them in my classes, and like experience is valued. And that was something that I feel like doesn't happen in every space, but at Northwestern, I definitely feel like I've been able to talk about my own story. Like I remember for one of my final exams, I talked about from like an anthropology kind of view, growing up and going to a predominantly Latinx high school. And my professor was so impressed and kept saying like, I love hearing about your experiences, and just to be in the academic setting and have someone tell you like your experiences are valid and also something that they want to hear and know more about is really encouraging and inspiring. And it encourages me more to like just keep sharing my story on campus. And so I'm really happy with how professors take into account our own personal experiences into their teaching, and they want to hear more about it as we write about it.
Yeah, so I recently took a class, I think last year. It was like a Spanish class, but the kind of like the interesting part about that class was that it was a way for us to study how art can change the world, but like specifically focused on like Latin America, right? So I think we like kind of studied different countries, even like art approaches to kind of like fight against racism, like kind of like it was mostly racism. So it was a great class just because like everyone in the class was like forced to speak Spanish. It was only a class for upperclassmen who like had experience speaking Spanish. So it was like kind of a way for me to feel a bit kind of like close to home, I guess. So that was like actually my first class at Northwestern that was a completely in Spanish. So it felt like closer to me. And because of that, I was able to kind of like enjoy it more than other classes. But yeah, the class basically taught us how to think about how art can fight against different kinds of problems, mainly racism, but like different like other little ones, like how to get Latinx people to stay in school, how to get like those graduation rates up. So it was a pretty interesting class because of that.
Awesome. I'm really jealous. I wish I had the opportunity to take all these classes. But you are all determined, successful, and engaged students from Latinx backgrounds who contribute significantly to the Wildcat community. So as you move forward at Northwestern in your life, whether you have a couple more years left like Vivica or you're about to graduate, what do you hope for the future?
It's a hard question, right? And I think I'm still going to be struggling with it after I graduate. But something I really hope for the future is that I can take. It's going to be like the sort of process of negotiation again, and it's going to be sort of negotiating stuff I've learned here at Northwestern that I don't want to let go of, right? And some of that might be captured with the words, right? That Black Lives Matter. I want to be able to keep this ethos. I want to be able to keep a militant ethos. I want to be able to keep fighting towards a collective liberation for a lot of people that I don't even know. But I also know that I like higher education. It's an industry that I see myself in. I'm inspired to work in it thanks to folks at Multicultural Student Affairs and Student Enrichment Services, and the folks at this Office of Undergraduate Admission, that I feel I can make a change, right? To make the experience better for students of color, right? Not just Latinx folks on campus. But at the same time, right, I want to be able to do work, right, that honors a lot of the stuff that I've learned here at Northwestern.
I think as I continue at Northwestern, a big goal of mine is just to continue fighting to improve the student experience here for especially Black and Brown students, because my own transition was difficult. And I just think of like, there's so many different ways that we can keep making it better and better. And I want to keep working on that before I graduate. And so I'm doing that through like student government as like a deputy of like justice and inclusion, and talking about these things with admin and sharing my experiences. And like I said, like I've been empowered to know that my experiences have value and meaning, and that they need to be heard by the admin so that they can do better on behalf of Black and Brown students. So while I'm here, that's what I'm working on. But I think long term, I really want to get into public health, like I mentioned, just because, like I said, I learned about these things in the classroom, about language barriers and for especially for like people that don't speak English, like going to the doctor is so complicated. And just based on my firsthand experiences and learning about it in theory, I just want to do a lot of work there so that I can work in social health like inequities and how can we solve them and work on them, especially for like reproductive justice. So I'm big into social justice and doing that now on campus, but I see it being a thing for my whole life, and that's heavily guided by just my Latinx identity and how I experience life. And I'm glad that I have like I'm gaining the tools at Northwestern to do that work academically, but I think carrying my experiences and values with me and my cultures every single day so that I can do that work and improve it for all of our people.
Yeah. So for me, right now, I'm currently focused on basically completing my degree, but I do want to work in the tech industry for a couple of years. I really like how computer science and psychology can come together for like different roles. One of the roles I'm looking at is product management. So like basically that means like how can we create the best product for our consumers or our users, right? I think that's very interesting to me. But again, like it's kind of like an ongoing question that you have to ask yourself, like, okay, like if you are doing like something currently, is that what you want to be doing for the next X, Y couple of years? So right now I'm focused on that, but I'm pretty sure that I'll be thinking about doing new things once I'm like in the midst of the tech industry after I graduate.
Something that I also think would be very helpful is for students who are coming into Northwestern from a Latinx background, who are maybe already have imposter syndrome, who already have some kind of culture shock. What advice do you have for them as they navigate the Northwestern experience as students from Latinx backgrounds?
My piece is right from the resources that you have. We are one of them, so definitely reach out to us as sort of people that you can come to with your questions, because I know I would have felt better knowing if because I didn't really know any admissions people or people that worked in admissions like when I was applying to Northwestern. So definitely using the resources that you have to your advantage.
I think a big thing is like this idea of reaching out to older students. So like finding other Latinx students on campus, but also there are Latinx advisors that are like more than willing to help you out and like navigate your journey. Take those classes and like that are Latinx focused and get to know your professors. Get to know older people here that have been around. Like I said, for me, it was knowing Dr. Luke Flores and someone that has a similar path that now is successful at Northwestern that I can look up to and could guide me through that process. I think that is a huge help. And I would say those resources, they might not just naturally come to you. And I think that's where you have to start learning a big skill in college, which is advocating for yourself. And don't be afraid to advocate for yourself to get the resources that you need to make sure that you are a successful Latinx student on this campus.
Yeah, I would definitely go with mentors, and mentors can take forms in like different ways. So as I mentioned before, advisors were a huge part of helping like kind of like navigate Northwestern. So definitely keep an eye out for those. And also like students, right? If those students like upperclassmen have been through those experiences, then there's like no reason for you like not contact them because they might have like pretty good advice to like facilitate your transition to college. So mentors definitely reach out. There are definitely more forms or shapes like mentors can take. Mentors can definitely more ways that mentors can take shape or form. But those are my two main ones.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today to speak more about Latinx student experiences and all these amazing tips and different courses you've been able to take. I appreciate you sharing these stories. I appreciate you doing so for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. And I really wish you all the best as you move forward whether you're about to graduate or you have a couple more years. You are all very big inspiration for our office because you've been able to navigate Northwestern, and you've been able to learn more about yourselves, about each other. So thank you again. And I hope that our viewers are able to learn a little bit more about Latinx student experience here at Northwestern, either from this discussion and the different Instagram takeovers that took place. So thank you again, and bye-bye.